Thank you, and welcome to Through the Door, the insider's perspective on running a business. I'm Megan Comfort, small business manager at Nevada State Bank, and this is a podcast where we get to learn from business owners, business leaders, and serial entrepreneurs in the state of Nevada, and get to learn from their experiences running companies in our great state. Now, we have a little bit of a special episode today that I want to point out, and I'm actually going to back up a little bit because I forgot to say, please subscribe. And also you can watch this podcast via YouTube, and you could download it on any app where podcasts are available. So please check it out. But back to what I was saying originally, we have a very special episode for you today because we actually have Steven Snow. He's the Pacific Regional Administrator for the Small Business Administration here with us today. He actually oversees Nevada, California, Arizona, Hawaii, Guam, and the surrounding islands. He's instrumental in helping improve the small business administration programs and also making sure that these programs are accessible and available to small businesses in his territories. So I want to say thank you so much, Steven, for being here today.
All right. Thank you for having me.
So we typically start off these episodes learning a little bit about your origin story. One thing I didn't bring up in your bio that's actually pretty unique is that you were a business owner yourself as well. So you have kind of a front row real life seat to what businesses go through.
Absolutely. Yes. So I'm based in Los Angeles. You covered the territory. So it's a really big territory. The region is diverse. There's a lot of different industries that we can get into. But so more about me. So I'm based in Los Angeles. I've been there about 20 years. I've worked in I've literally only worked in small businesses, whether I was the owner or the employee of the small business. So I have a very deep small business background. So I've worked in startups a lot in kind of the Santa Monica, Los Angeles West Side area, and started kind of technology programs. I've been in data analysis sort of at the beginning, moving into operations and doing product management, as well as various parts of kind of, when you're at a startup, in a small business, you're kind of a jack of all trades. So I've been involved in running customer service teams. I have done product operations and product deliveries and product management, as well as project management, which is, there's a little subtleties there that you learn when you're when you're running a team like that. And so I've been always passionate about automotive industry. So I've mostly only worked in the automotive industry, and that's kind of where my small business background went as far as my ownership. So I started an automotive consulting company. I kind of have a really deep expertise. It's always been my passion about just kind of everything automotive, like what cars are out there, what cars are good for other people, and what cars are, within a budget. What are you looking for? And so the first company was a consulting company. So I would spend time working with folks on, what's the right car for you, giving my services out to different larger companies that would need sort of data services along with automotive data, and as well as starting up a wholesale dealership that sells cars based on kind of my knowledge of all the automotive detail that I know, like the pricing, what the trends are for, whether this car is at a good value, if it's low. There's a lot of good tools out there that you can use, and it was very eye-opening to me kind of starting that business, because when you're doing a consulting business, it's a lot more Service-based, that's right. So this is like getting inventory and doing planning and looking out to kind of project, like what are the
lead times.
That's right. And so it's very difficult. And I learned a lot. And this is I'm based in California. About kind of the interactions that as a small business owner you have with the government, and where they can be helpful and where they can be unhelpful, which is most of what I experienced, which is unfortunate. I think we have a level of difficulty in that state, which I appreciate that Nevada seems to recognize the kind of the value of small businesses in a way that, making it easier and putting up less regulatory barriers and less areas for blocking businesses is valuable, and that's how you grow the community and increase your hiring and all the different operations and expectations that you would think you would have from SBA perspective. And that's kind of what grew me into this role, was really like that business background and my operations background, and being able to kind of use my experience as a small business owner, as well as just working for small businesses for such a long time. It kind of seems crazy it's been so long, but the time flies, and I love the small business administration. I tell people this a lot. I'd probably be doing wholesale car dealing if I had known the different options and services and programs and all the different value adds that the SBA and all of our partners do. It's kind of an incredible organization, and our resource partners that we can get into, and all the programs and work that we do is just.
I notice that a lot with business owners. When I'm working with them, they either have a story of a friend of a friend of a friend, or something that happened to them 25 plus years ago where it's just rubbed them the wrong way, or a close person has shared that experience, and they just have this stigma in their mind as to why they don't want to use an SBA loan, or why they don't even understand some of those programs. I've even had business owners ask me to leave their office when I've accompanied other bankers specific about SBA, because they're like, I absolutely don't want an SBA loan, which is funny because I always look at that as a challenge to be like, no, these programs are really great and they truly can help you. Let me just explain it to you. Let me tell you how it works. Let's focus on what it is that you really need, because the terms and the structures and the capabilities that it's going to afford you in your business, it's just so important. And it makes me sad sometimes that a lot of businesses don't truly understand that. When they get the loan and it achieves what they wanted, they get it, right?
That's right.
But sometimes it doesn't always work that way for whatever reason. And so I always kind of get a little sad when there are people that are like, hey, like that's absolutely off the table for me. And I'm like, but can I just explain it a little bit to you?
That's right. Yeah, and if you want, I can kind of walk through, I think, what the misconceptions are with the SBA. So, and one of the areas we get a lot of, and I've been in the position for 6 months, so I'm not the expert on everything, but we have local district offices for that. Saul Ramos is here with us.
Yeah, Saul's the best. He's the best district office.
And so we have expertise in a lot of different areas, and I think that's one of the misconceptions is that the SBA is really here to provide capital and nothing else. And obviously our capital program is very important. We became much more famous during the PPP time. And
that's when everybody loved SBA.
That's when everyone loved SBA.
Yeah,
that's right. But it also set high expectations, and we don't really do grants, and that's one of the things that people are always looking for. And it's really loan-based programs. But we do other things that I think are just as valuable, and that kind of is where I go when I say, I might not have this position if I had known about these other programs. So, for instance, contracting, right? So, government contracting is a huge portion of economy in general, and small businesses get a set aside for governments across the country. So, we're talking about the federal government, the biggest buyer of goods in the world, by the way, the federal government. You've got state government, you've got local government, you've got lots of different. There's even contracting with private entities that you can learn about through our resource partners as well. So, the government contracting piece is huge, and a lot of people don't really think that they can get into it because there's a lot of forms. You got to fill out all this kind of background information, and am I capable? And it's amazing the level of small businesses that can still be contributing to government workers. It's anything that you think of at a building. Anything that you've got exterior, you've got maintenance, you've got plumbing. There's all sorts of different areas, and with those set asides, I think it's important that small business owners kind of open their minds to government contracting, and using the SBA is kind of the home base for that, because that's where we will explain the intricacies, and there are a lot of differences, and that's where the district offices can come in and help. Is kind of what are the requirements between the different types of governments, and so the contracting is really a big one. We also have a strong, I would say, muscle for counseling, right? So if you are a business owner and you're not sure about how you've got a great idea, but you don't know how to get the financing right. You want to make sure your business plan is good. You want to learn about how to make a P&L statement, whatever specifics. So we have resource partners. They're the Small Business Development Centers, the SBDCs, the WBC's Women Business Centers, SCORE, which is the advisors, as well as our Veterans Business Outreach Center. So that's VBOX. So all of these are our resource partners that can provide expertise at even different industry levels, that have all been there. They've done it. They know how to get you through if you need marketing help, if you need inventory. Where there's different levels of how you have to operate a business. It's not just start up an idea. We will help you with that as well. But there's kind of the logistics of running a business, and so I think these resource partners are super valuable. And it's all free. So
yeah, I could attest to that. We refer a lot of clients, established businesses and startups, to those resources because they are so instrumental in helping people. That is something that I think is very overwhelming for any individual seeking information and trying to understand what information am I looking for, because you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
That's what I love about entrepreneurs is they also don't know what they don't know, but they're not afraid to figure it out and find it. And Juani said this last episode, which I think is just so amazing. She was a guest on the podcast. She owns Mothership Coffee, but she said, I'm a pro at failing forward. And so I love that concept. I like that idea of they're afraid and they're nervous. They have that nervous energy, but they're going to try to channel that to seek out the right resources and information. And when they find SCORE, or when they talk to Saul and they get acquainted and they figure out that there's all these other resources and there's people that can help guide them towards the right resources based on their particular situation, it not only cuts down the amount of time of them wasting time and energy trying to figure it out themselves,
for sure,
but it gives them like a support system, a foundation, which I just think is so valuable for any business starting out or even established. Like, you're on an island sometimes. You can absolutely exclude yourself from the world and feel isolated from everyone else when you have the pressure of a business and growing it, keeping people employed, training people, dealing with fires, understanding all the aspects of running a business. You can't just be good at making a product or providing a service. You have to understand the financials. You have to understand the compliance, regulations, like anything tied into your company. And it can sound like a lot, but SCORE and SBDC and all the VBox that you mentioned, all these other resources really do help give that foundation and that support system. I mean, I can think of a million different businesses right now that I've interacted with that were so appreciative and thankful for the help.
Yes. And I think a lot of business owners kind of don't necessarily think they need it, or they don't. It's like, I know what I'm doing. I've done, I've been studying. I've been prepared for all the, these eventualities. But, it doesn't hurt to get another opinion, I think, in a lot of different areas. And it's all free and it's available. And these are experts. So it's like, even if you think you know what you're doing, you will learn more things. And I'm sure you do know what you're doing, but it's just, you have to be able to take second opinions. I think it's important to get that different perspective from a trained, counseling that really knows your business that you're interested in. So I don't be too overconfident, I would say, in certain incidents.
Always, get an assessment or
That's
just
right.
like have a conversation and see where it goes. That's right. That's what I always like to say. Like, let's have a conversation and let's just see where this goes and how we can help each other, because I'm blown away with the things that I learn sometimes about different businesses. I get fired up after a prospect meeting. I'll like just gab it up with like everyone in my office and be like, oh my God, they do this and this is how they get their clients and this is how they started. And it's just such a fun, story and history to learn about how people get into things, and you can't do it alone. Like,
that's right.
That's just one of the main points. So as far as challenges that you see for businesses, how does the SBA help with some of those challenges relative to like either the programs or the services? Like, we talked about the resources, but what other things are you guys seeing right now that maybe aren't available today or are that you guys are kind of rolling out because you see those things impacting business owners?
Yes, that's right. And I've been amazed because, as coming from not a private sector background, a non-government background, I've expected kind of slow process of changing and running programs in a different way. And that is not what has been happening. I mean, Administrator Leffler has been introducing almost new programs, it seems like, on a weekly basis. It's unbelievable. So, and a lot of these are very needed and strong kind of business oriented solutions for problems. So we've got a lot of online tools, which I can get into specifics for. We've done a lot of changes to how the banking can work and how to make it fair and make kind of our banks partners loan more. And being here at the bank, I think that's important for us to get as much of our kind of banking partners on board and getting through those processes and procedures that I know are sometimes onerous for banks as well as they would be for the small business owners. And so some of them, so we have the lender match tool is a great one. Speaking of banking, and so
we use that.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard a lot of small businesses, and so if you're looking for financing, it's a very easy to complete form. You put in your information. It's kind of what your industry is. What are you looking for? And then it will match you with local banks that are on your side as far as whatever your industry is. They're familiar with the kinds of work that you might be doing in most cases. And so that tool is really interesting. I think we've, at this point, there's the manufacturing, the Made in America manufacturing has really been a big focus of ours. And I think everyone knows there's been we spoke about COVID, and the supply chain has been sort of a struggle. I think it's been like 5 years, and so there's a feeling, I think, in the small business community that's like there's got to be a way that we can do this in a way that makes us more sort of service of ourselves and not be able to rely on others and have these kind of supply chain concerns. And I guess one of the areas that I hear from small businesses a lot that I think is a little bit of a misconception is that it's way too expensive to produce things in America. So one of the examples I use is if you look at let's use China for example. So they have a pretty low labor rate compared to America, right? But it's not the way it used to be. So if you look back 30 years, Chinese labor wage averages were around 2% of American labor wage. So this is where a conception comes from. This was true. So in 1995, it was significantly cheaper to produce anything in China.
Everything was outsourced.
Right. Everything is outsourced because it is so different between kind of our living standards and the economic output of the two countries. China has grown significantly in 30 years. They are now more like a third of the average labor wage of American workers. And so that's a big difference. They have grown tremendously in wage and everywhere else. So the cost production for producing in China compared to America has narrowed significantly. And then you look at other kind of side issues, and these wouldn't be side issues in certain ways, so it depends on what your industry is, but like freight, can cost, say, 45 days worth of planning. You don't know when it's going to get there. There's a lot of shipping issues, versus having it, let's say you've got a producer right here in Nevada, you can get your prototype in, you can have everything ready to go. It could be like 10 days, shipping. So you've also got an intellectual property issue. So I've heard a lot of small businesses who are like, I've sent them the molds and now they've got the molds and now they're doing things in China. I don't know what they're doing with it. So this is security, I think, is another area that people don't really think about as much. There's also kind of just logistics, like language barrier, time zones are tricky. There's different holidays. So when you kind of add up all of these, and I think also just Made in America, that's a brand that, big companies, big suppliers and big retailers are big on, looking for products that are made in America. So you kind of add all that up together and you get a value proposition that's not as skewed towards overseas production. So I think onshoring is a much more viable option that small business owners don't necessarily think about because you kind of have this preconceived notion about, it's just going to be too expensive. And one of the, before I'm going off, I think, but the onshoring tool, we're talking about tools, is a new one on the SBA's sba.gov/onshoring. So what that tool does is it matches. So you need a raw material, you need a supply of a certain type of product. You put in what you're in need of, and the onshoring tool will provide you with a supplier in America, and you can set a range. You can put in all the details you want. If it's Nevada, if it's West Coast, if it's anywhere in America, they'll present you with options for suppliers that do that product or that raw material, whatever that input you need is. You will be able to find hopefully one that you can source from America if you need it.
That's
It's
really cool. Yeah, I need to check that out.
Mhm.
One of my husband's companies is a supply company, and we do import product for that. I'm very close to the issues relative to the impact on tariffs and
Right.
all the lead time, logistical, problems that we've kind of endured really since COVID, primarily,
That's right.
and just the shipping costs.
That's right.
Right. There's a lot of additional costs that have kind of raised the bar, which has been very challenging
Yes.
as a small business when you're trying to be
Yes.
very mindful of the price point for your client or your customer. So, and I do think long term, at least the sentiment that I get from businesses is that they do want to have more onshoring and
That's right.
manufacturing here in the United States. But it is one of those things of you don't know what you don't know. How do you
Yes.
navigate the regulatory environment of setting up manufacturing that's different between state to state because there's state requirements, there's inspections and permitting, and then there's also federal requirements depending on what it is that you're going to manufacture. If you need the FDA involved, if you need,
Yes.
other government entities involved and them signing off. The time frame and the costs associated with it, I think, is just worrisome or something that is unknown and concerning for businesses, or at least that's kind of the sentiment that I heard. I think the hope is that these much larger companies, these Fortune 500 companies that have pledged that they're going to be making big investments into onshoring things in the
Yes.
United States, that they'll actually start to help pave the way for other smaller companies to be able to put something together that isn't going to be as costly. Whenever you're the first person to do
That's right.
something,
That's
it's always going to be expensive in
Yes.
the stakes, right?
Yes. The
And
stakes.
small businesses are not
right.
necessarily the ones that have the financial wherewithal to be
Yes.
able to afford the lessons of those types of mistakes when you're trying to build infrastructure for manufacturing.
That's right.
So, what are some of the other things that SBA is thinking about? I know that there was a topic around manufacturing and raising the limit
Yes.
for companies that are looking to do this because it is expensive to kind of
That's
set
right.
those things up. Can you share anything
Absolutely.
about how that conversation is going?
Yes, and so there is, and some of these are congressional legislation that has to pass, which we are in the process of getting through right now. So we are looking to expand a $5 million cap to 10. And I think the capital is really one of the main areas that, like you said, like you need the capital to be able to expand, as well as potentially make even a new factory that would maybe produce things that you can't get here. And we've actually had multiple companies that I've spoken to personally here just in Arizona, California, Nevada, who are like, I can't even source this correctly from China. Like, I'm just going to start my own factory of this particular fastener, let's say. And it's like, I'd just rather do it myself. And then I'm going to be able to make my own new product line. So it's almost like it's amazing to me how innovative, some of these small businesses are, because they're able to, and this is the thing that the bigger corporate companies can't do is really sort of turn on a dime and pivot to like where they're seeing like this is a need that we have, and we can make these ourselves. And then I've got a whole customer base already that's going to need this, and now I'm going to expand to a new customer base because I'm making a new product that everyone else needs because they're all having to deal with the same problem that I'm having. So I've been happy to see that how kind of our small businesses here are they think with that mindset of kind of that entrepreneurial spirit. And so capital expansion is a big one. We're really looking at helping find workforce, right? So the issues of kind of mismatching, unemployment is pretty good as far as not having a high rate, but there's a mismatch in work where you have skills workers that are needed at a lot of these different small businesses, and we have trouble finding those workers. So I think training is really a big part of what we're going to be doing, as well as getting that kind of matchmaking going. And the SBA offers a lot of programs where we can partner with our resource partners to up sell it's not, that's not the right term, but get their uplifted to like where you're not just a lot of these factory roles. You have that's another preconceived notion. I think that's like you're not toiling away like just putting one thing together. Like these are people operating like heavy machinery and lathes and ovens and different kind of skill necessary, but it doesn't mean, it's not necessarily like a full 4-year college degree. This is like, training and workforce development, opportunities for people that don't necessarily have a college degree at all. And this is high paying and high skill work that is in demand. So you can kind of command different prices. And for the small business owners, they need that workforce because right now we do have a shortage of that skilled worker. So the workforce is very important. And I think also it goes back to kind of contracting. The more you can manufacture, for the public good, you're also going to be able to provide that to government services like you spoke about. And then I think the one topic that we haven't touched on, I kind of brought it up at the beginning, but it's red tape. So one of the SBA's big focuses. We
don't want to forget that.
Is on red tape. That's right. And so we have there's a red tape hotline. There's a phone number you can go to. It's sba.gov/red tape. There's also an email you can use to kind of describe what your barrier is. What is your issue? It doesn't have to be federal government. We have an Office of Advocacy, which also is a new fully staffed office that hasn't been a strength of SBA for it's been over like 10 years, I think, since we had a full Office of Advocacy. And so combining kind of this red tape bureaucracy blocking mission with the Office of Advocacy, we also have an ombudsman representing small businesses. So we're really trying to come at the barriers for businesses from federal, state, local. We want to hear about everything. It could be from your utilities as well, or just some old, Hawaii has an interesting one where they have legislation that stops them from having ships go directly to Hawaii, called the Jones Act. I got to hear about this a lot when I was in Hawaii. And so ships cannot go directly from China to Hawaii unless that's the only place they're going to go. So you can only make port in one American city if you're a foreign vessel. And so like that makes it very expensive for them. So that there's things like that so they, instead of most of their goods end up coming from, let's say, Asia to Long Beach or LA port, and then going back to Honolulu and then going to China. So that makes everything very expensive. And so there's just lots out there that at a government or at a big entity level, it doesn't seem like it's that much, but to the small business owners that get affected by it, it's everything. And so we've gotten a lot of good feedback from the Red Tape Hotline. By the way, they pick up the phone like immediately. So you call them up and you will get to talking to somebody. It's like 30 seconds, I think, is every time I've called.
That is fascinating. I actually love that you brought that up. I'm learning things myself that I know would be instrumental for so many different businesses. And I like that the SBA is really trying to focus on having a cohesive front that is really understanding every aspect and how to change and evolve appropriately so that it truly does make a big impact for small businesses.
That's right.
That Red Tape Hotline sounds fascinating. I'm actually going to use it myself.
You should.
So I'm glad that you brought it up because that is, I think, something that is a very big point of contention right now with businesses that are being heavily impacted by things like tariffs and, just the uncertainty and the volatility around it. It's making people feel very uneasy, not having any finality of understanding what that's going to look like for themselves. And so they're having a very hard time making future plans. So if there is a path forward where they can contribute and help provide information on their struggles and their challenges, they might lead to other resources and things to help guide them on how they can secure more of their future and be kind of more self-sufficient, right? Less reliant on other things, because there's always going to be challenges whenever you don't have control over your supply chain. Like there's always, fun things in business that you learn almost on a daily basis. That's why earlier when we were talking, I'm like, can we just have a boring year? I would just love one boring year would be nice. Like crisis, no problems.
That's right.
But, in business, it is nice to know that you guys are thinking about it from a holistic approach.
Yes.
You're saying like, we understand this is hard and challenging. There's a method to the madness though. And I do think we need to get that information out more so
Yes.
that people understand that there are avenues where you can share your thoughts and maybe even get some inroads into understanding how you can improve your situation.
That's right. That's right. And there's we are already getting in there. I think it's like 400 different like laws in different states and federal areas that are being worked on to change now. And it's like literally over $1 billion worth of like red tape has already been like eliminated. So it's important. I was bothered. This is like a story. I was at a food processor. I won't name any names of departments of your government, but they were like, oh well, they're doing really well. They're in a very like tricky part of downtown Los Angeles, which is an area that has a lot of issues and problems. And I speak from experience in the city that our level of interest in kind of supporting the small business of the community is I think lacking in certain areas. So, but in this one, it's not even the city. So this guy has never had a failing grade or even like I think a B. I think he's just gotten A's every single time as a food processor, and he has an inspector come to visit him every single day to the point where I know they have like 4 little offices in the back room.
They gave him an office.
They gave him an office. I was like, wow,
smart move. I would do the same. I'd be like, you're here every day. You might as well. You want to have lunch?
And he's just asking for very reasonable things, I think, which are like, hey, like maybe is once a week reasonable to come over? Like, ideally maybe like a monthly thing or even but it just, there's certain things like that where you're sort of, it defies logic to be like this is a company that's been in operation for almost 100 years. So we're talking about like someone that's knows what they're doing and they've been around and they're not new. And it's just like, there's got to be some reasonable levels of government intrusion, is a little strong maybe, but it's just like oversight. That's right. It's like, this is too much. So, you hear these stories and I think that's one of the reasons I really like the role is just getting to hear these stories and to hear the small businesses and they're just so passionate. It's like, we're going and there's a lot of folks like that and highly regulated and you're lucky, like Nevada businesses are in a great position compared to a lot of the highly regulated states where it's like they don't want to have to move and they don't want their workers to have to move, but it's very understandable when the kind of scenarios that they're working through to be like, well, I guess we're gonna like listen to the letters and calls from Denton, Texas, and just move there now. We've been here for 50 years, but it's just too much. We can't handle it anymore. So one of the things I think like the Office of Advocacy is going to be really great for is sort of getting the local governments and the state governments that aren't focuses enough on local businesses and what their kind of effect is on them and all these blocks that you're speaking to is like look at the impact that has and look at the impact that has on the local community and we don't want to have businesses have to travel across the country. It shouldn't be a race to the bottom as far as like the rules go. It's like we should just be able to have, the people live where they want to live, operate the business where they want to live, support their local communities, and not have to move because the government is too intrusive. And that I think is kind of a through line to what the SBA is trying to promote here, particularly the red tape hotline as well as the Made in America manufacturing.
I know we have experienced a lot of influx of California-based businesses, which I'm very, excited to have. I think that it's fun to see because we are a little bit more, I think, business friendly.
Yes, I can speak from experience.
We've had other guests on the podcast that have said that very thing. Like, this is such a unique state because your accessibility of state and local government is just so easy.
That's right.
It's not a challenge. It's not difficult. And you can really create an impact change. Yes, it takes time and effort, which is another thing on your plate, but it's so worth it. And you pave the way not just for yourself, but for other small businesses as well. So it is something that helps. It's a rising tide, raises all boats type of situation. And so I really like that we have that here and that, we get to reap the benefits of some of the other mistakes that are happening along our borders.
Right. That's right.
So tell me what you guys are seeing more of as far as opportunity or growth, like in small business. I mean, we talked about how manufacturing is going to be supported, and I do think that will ultimately grow long term as people see pathways forward to bring more things onshoring here.
Yes.
But what other areas are you seeing kind of more SBA volume on relative to small businesses?
Sure, sure. And we have an interesting Region 9 is extremely diverse, right? So I think it's kind of like a microcosm of the country, right? So we've got desert, we've got tropics, if you're thinking about island, we have borders, we have just regular temperate kind of rainforest, we have huge temperate forest, and we have huge cities, massive cities, and a ton of rural as well. So I think there's a lot of areas that we can kind of involve ourselves in with the SBA as far as being able to assist because we have such a wide range of technology versus legacy businesses. And I think one of the areas that we're seeing a lot of movement on right now, and the western side of the country is always kind of traditionally, like, I think, led in a lot of technology sectors, is really on the AI front. And so I think that it's interesting to me. I've spoken with a few different small businesses that have leveraged it in a way that is very clever, and this is kind of going back to how they're innovative in their entrepreneurial ways. There's just a lot of kind of efficiencies that you can gain, and so I'm seeing the small businesses are all the ones that want to get a little bit ahead of the curve are able to kind of have it run like their back office or their marketing efforts and outreach efforts, and so we see that happen a lot. And I think the broader conversation about AI is trickier because it's like, okay, well, is it going to take people's jobs? Is it going to be kind of all knowing and take over?
Yeah, I had to deal with American Express recently,
Yeah.
and the person that I was chatting with had to tell me that they were human.
Right.
And I just thought that was so funny because I
Yes.
said, wow, we live in a day and age now where you have to verify whether or not you're talking to a human.
That's crazy. I know it is. It's wild, but it's also wild what it can do. And so what I've been encouraging small businesses to do is, take advantage of the stuff that you can do now, because it's kind of like a first mover benefit on a lot of these. It's like, hey, if your competitors are not running efficiently using the tools that are out there right now for AI purposes, you don't need to worry about the like kind of longer term. It's just like let it make a website for you, or let it run your numbers. Give it you always are going to have to check it. It's not always right. I tell it, you cannot trust that thing to be 100%. Make sure you give it some, looking over it for a while, because it will give you bad examples, but it's also very good at doing a lot of these things that a small business owner hasn't in the past had the resources to actually commit to. It's like, oh, I can actually have a website. It's amazing, even in 2025, how many small businesses don't have websites, and they don't think they need them. But if you can make it that easy to have a website and put yourself on the map, that makes if you want to get a loan, if you want to have the kind of legitimacy that different customers would look for, websites are very valuable. And so, like, I encourage people to go through those kind of thought processes as far as being able to use that kind of new technology, even if you are, in a legacy industry. And we have a history of factories and 100-year-old businesses, and like the one I was speaking to before, that they've done things the same way and they've done them the old ways. But this doesn't mean you have to change that. It's really just an add-on. It's complementary. So we see a lot of that. I mean, I think it's great that everyone has that kind of business spirit. I think there's still a little bit of the Wild West mentality remains out here, where you're just like, you got to do it, you got to get it done, do what you need to do to make it happen, and that I appreciate that about.
I love AI. I think I think it's a great tool to use, and it does help improve efficiencies. It also helps get the creative juices flowing. It's not so easy to come up with like a new process or the next best product that you want, or how to grow your sales and where to grow your sales, and understanding maybe some tools or some things that you can implement in your business to understand. You
Yes.
being a data expert and
Yes.
understanding data analysis, that's something that I've actually learned through the use of
Yes.
AI is
Great for that.
how much the data of my business and my clientele, if I'm capturing it in the right way, using websites, using analytics through
Yep.
other sites on how people find us,
Yep.
it will help guide me to move in the right direction as a business towards growing
That's right.
my sales, growing revenue, acquiring more customers.
Yes.
And a lot of businesses, I don't think, understand the power of that
Yep.
data because big business is using it.
That's right.
But now I feel
That's right.
like AI is allowing us as small business owners to have more access to
Totally.
the data and how to leverage that to our advantage too, so that it's not just being housed with the Apples of the world.
That's right. That's right. No, it's totally true. It levels the playing field in a lot of different ways. It's a great point.
Mm-hmm. So tell me one thing about business trends too that I wanted to bring up, and I don't know if you've seen this, is there is this generation that's kind of sunsetting out of business, right?
Yes.
So all these matured businesses, and maybe they don't have family or their family doesn't necessarily want to take it over, and they're now looking to exit, because that is something with small businesses. Their exit strategy is selling that company generally. They
That's
didn't
right.
necessarily establish a 401k for themselves or some type of retirement
That's right.
plan. And so something that we are really excited about that we do a lot of is the acquisitions and the partner buyouts,
Awesome.
at least in the state of Nevada and within our footprint of Zion's Bancorp. I'm seeing that a lot of businesses are gravitating towards or understanding that that is an option, and it's very accessible, and it's benefiting the business, the seller, the business owner that wants to sunset. And then it's also benefiting the young folks either working in the company or even outside of the company that are looking to buy a business, be able to
Absolutely.
afford that and kind of move that business forward so that it doesn't just, die at
Yes.
the end of
Yes.
the stage of that business.
I mean, do you work for the SBA? I love that you brought this up. I mean, this is huge, the silver tsunami. All right, so this is a thing that we are thinking very deeply about at the SBA right now. I mean, it is truly like the small business. These are the ones that have been in business. They have incredible contact lists. They do really good work. They're kind of the local guy. It makes me, as a homeowner, you're always like, man, my plumber retired. I'm my electrician. You know how to do everything. Like, this is a disaster. Now I got to go find a new person. So like the value of those established businesses, their name recognition, their know-how, their books are all set up. Everything's ready to go. And so I think being able to encourage that acquisition, like you're talking about, and working with the banks is a thing that we're going to be looking into as SBA goes in a very strong way, because it just restarting everything when you have these existent is just a much more difficult part. And now you have to, I think the tricky part, and for banking, and I think our resourcer partners are going to be great for that. So you're going to say, okay, let's go to the SBDC. Am I kind of qualified? It's like you might be like, oh, I've got a lot of money, but it might not be the right. You're going to have to know that there's going to be a lot of commitment there, right? So it's going to be like, do you want to really take over this electrician? Are you going to be the electrician? Are you going to train an electrician? Are you going to be the one that is there day in and day out? You really have a lot of skin in the game. Even if you are like, I want to buy this to just like make more money, you kind of have to look at it from a like, this is a legacy business that has been valuable to the community for a lot of different ways. And I'm not saying that you have to have that. It's nice when you have that, but you do have to determine the kind of how much involvement it's going to take. And so we want to be able to encourage people to do that. And the ones that, so if you are, and I think the SBDC would be a perfect place to do this, where you're kind of like, hey, I am looking to acquire a business. What kind of business should I look at? And they can look at your background, your passions, your interests, and say, okay, well, you might be the perfect person for this electrician's business. And he's got all the, there's the training on the different level. We're talking about red tape. So like, obviously, if you're a builder, you go through a lot of permit process. You have that. So it's like you're going to have to become kind of in the mindset of the person who is doing the work, even if you're not going to do the work. And I think a lot of these people do want to do the work too. It kind of goes back to the skilled trades, and we in all of the region need a lot of these small business practical contractors. We haven't even gotten into the disasters that we've had, and there's a shortage of those workers. And so we want these legacy businesses to continue as much as possible because they're ready to go. They're the ones that the community trusts and listens to and has, I would say, reasonable prices compared to other. They know what they're doing, and they know what they're doing with the permitting and all the different kind of regulatory issues as well. So this is an area that it's just funny you brought that because it's we're thinking very deeply about how we can be of benefit for these types of businesses. It's a really important area.
Yeah. I love that you coined the term silver tsunami. I'm going to use that now because I do agree. I feel like that is something that is very important. One thing that I always look at and I try to educate any prospective buyer of a business is that your experience is very important.
That's right.
So you understanding how that business works, how your directly related experience, even if it's not within the industry, is going to actually tie in and make this business successful is very important because it really is about moving that business forward into the next generations. It's not to let it go down, because of just a lack of understanding or knowledge within that space, and just making sure that you are very prepared. So sometimes I feel like people do feel like, oh, that's so much information that you're asking. Why is that important? It's like, it's important because you'll see when you take over the business, how important your experience and your understanding of the industry and the trade itself, if it's a trade or the product or service, is going to come into play.
That's right.
More often than not.
That's right.
I also love with partner buyouts, just seeing employees that have been around for a really long time buy a business that they
That's really
for.
cool.
I've done ones where they started as dishwashers at 18 and became the general managers, and then they finally got the opportunity to buy the business. And the owners could have sold it for more money, but they don't want to. Right. They want to give it to people that care.
And they know it'll keep going.
About the business and the people that go there. And I love those stories. I love helping clients with those types of requests.
It's probably an easier, in a lot of ways, right? To kind of approve that. You're like, you don't need to worry as much about like, oh, well, can they do the work? Can they do the job? Are they into it, right?
Yeah. And I know that they're not looking at it from the perspective of mailbox money. I think that's where, and mailbox money is a term where you don't really want to be involved. You just want something because you believe it's turnkey. Sure. And you're just hoping that you get a kickoff of profits or income every month and that you continue to build your wealth. And so a lot of times I try to understand what's the intention of this client or this borrower, because yes, mailbox money is nice and you should use all of your, available cash and everything that you have to try and create that for you. I think that's amazing. But when it comes to some of these businesses, like the hands-on approach and just really the investment inside of it should matter more than just maximizing profits and trying to, take it all and build your own personal wealth.
That's right. And I think I appreciate those owners they want that their business to live on. And, you never know if someone takes it over and it's just for the mailbox money, how long will it last? Are they going to just flip it to somebody else? And then does it go somewhere else? Like I think it's, inherent with the person that's been working there. And it's nice when they have kind of a succession plan, and it's great for the banks to be able to support that, because I know there's probably a lot of times where it's like, they don't have that capital to be able to take it over even if they want to. And so being able to go through your banking through the SBA, through the SBDCs, you can actually make that kind of dream happen where it might not seem like it could. It's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. Yes. I do have one last question for you. And it's a question that I ask every guest, but what is a guiding principle that you might have in business or in life that you'd want to share with our listeners?
Sure. This might come to me just because, like you were talking about having a normal year. Like I think be prepared is like my motto. I was an Eagle Scout. That's one of our main. We've had a lot of disasters, this year, last year. I was in Maui, recently. They're still recovering in a very slow way. And so I think it's important as a business owner, and like you said, like uncertainty and different kind of physical and economic things can happen. And so I think as a business owner and as a homeowner, life, family, you just, prepare yourself. I hear a lot of stories about, ideas of people coming to the SBDCs and saying like, hey, I've got a business idea. It's like, do your homework and get ready for that meeting you're going to have. Like, have a business plan. Like, bring up the different ways that you're going to make this business work well. And I think it's important to just have that kind of mentality. That's like, when you're going into something, do as much background. Have as much insurance, whatever you need to make sure that your business is going to be successful ahead of time. And that's just kind of my. I've just sort of research focused and want to make sure that I've done due diligence beforehand, and maybe that's important. I think in certain different areas, and if you're in if you're in a drought area or a flood prone area, we've just had a lot of that. So I think having your kind of plan for when something's going to happen is important, and that can relate to all sorts of different parts of life and business, I would say.
No, I love that. Be prepared. It's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very simple concept, but I think a lot of people kind of forget about what preparation really means.
Yes.
And if the last 5 years hasn't taught you anything, you got to be prepared for absolutely anything that might happen, because truly anything and everything has already happened.
That's right.
And I'm just going to be fascinated when there's another moment where I'm like, wow, never saw that coming.
That's right.
Because it happens every time. So yes, preparation is absolutely key. And the resources that you guys have at the Small Business Administration is truly amazing. And I just loved hearing about some of the ongoing evolution of what those resources look like, and how you guys are trying to align the various different levels of government and red tape to help be more pro small business. That's super fascinating. So thank you so much for being here, Stephen. I really appreciate it. And thank you to all the listeners to listening to this great episode. Hopefully you have taken away one or two amazing things that is really going to help propel your business forward. This is Through the Door, the insider's perspective on running a business. Thank you so much.